Morning, everyone. Morning, members. I have just spoken with the chairperson now. His network difficulties. He is trying to connect as we speak. Our apologies. Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You can see Honorable Nola is away from the three.
Not far enough.
In the morning, you are
not far enough.
With me.
Good morning to everybody.
With me.
Morning, Mr. Chair.
Morning. My apologies. I was struggling to connect.
That's okay.
I think it's because Honorable Ngola is connected perfectly today. I could not connect.
The tree is coming. Don't worry. The tree is coming.
So, Chair, you have made me a breakfast today. Everyone is just on my case.
Good morning to our guests and everyone watching at home. Today we will be
recording in progress.
Today we will be receiving a briefing on the master plan from the Department of Rural Development and the Department of Small Business Development. I can see Mamu. Oh, Mamu Chapo, I thought you're still with small business. My apologies.
No, welcome. No problem.
Good morning, Deputy Minister, and you're welcome. And after that, we'll receive a briefing also from the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, because we want to generally understand the industry as a whole before we start with our public hearings and processing the cannabis bill. I know Mamu Chapa is well versed with the subject matter. Is there any member from the executive who is part of the delegation? So it's Deputy Minister Chapa. And let's start with the Department of Rural Development to brief us, because they are the overall leaders in this process, in this program of master plan. Mamu Chapa, I will hand over to you, and you can either lead or anyone that you would have delegated.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to all the honorable members that are in this portfolio committee and on the platform. Let me forward the apology of the Minister, Minister Togo Didiza. She is in the cabinet cluster meeting. She has a role to play there. And I will be able to introduce the officials that are present here that are going to make the presentation, while I appreciate the opportunity that we have afforded the department to actually make this presentation preceding this bill itself. It will help us to follow issues as they are being presented in the actual bill. And also to say that you have been able to come with this bill in time. I know how difficult it is to actually be able to reach this stage, and we don't take it for granted as partners in this arrangement. And people are really looking forward to it and are creating a lot of confusion because it's long, or it has long been awaited in our history. And the illicit and the underground operatives of this particular cannabis plant has gone for many years, and therefore that you have placed us at this level and stage of development of the laws that pertain to regulate and control over this. I'm very pleased as representing the department. The people that are there, they know how they are going to make their presentations, but let me introduce Dr. Julian Chapter, Mr. Thabo Ramashala, Ms. Francina Rakhatla. They all will be able to fill themselves as they have been preparing for this particular day. Chairperson, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DM, for taking time to lead the delegation. And congratulations on a new role as Deputy Minister of Rural Development. We are looking forward to a fruitful engagement with yourself and with your team. Over to you, the person who's going to be making the presentation.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, and thank you to Deputy Minister. Chair, our presentation is going to be in two parts. I will allow Mr. Ramashala to do the presentation on the cannabis master plan. And then, Chair, I will then give a perspective on the department's position on some key aspects in the bill that is before this committee. So with your indulgence, and with your guidance, Chair, we will then go through the master plan, and you will also guide then if you would want to stop at that point for questions, for clarity, before we then get into the actual presentation on the inputs from the department on the bill that's before this committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. How we have done it yesterday, we allow you to do both before we ask questions.
That is in order, Chair. We will give over to Mr. Ramashala and then I will follow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chapter.
Thank you and good morning to everybody. Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning to my Deputy Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister Kapa, honorable members of the committee, colleagues from various government departments, as well as all stakeholders that have joined the platform. I will take you through the master plan. Let me try to share my screen. And then you can indicate whether it is visible on your side.
Yes, it is.
It is visible.
Yes, it is.
All right. No, thanks. Let me try to take you through this particular document. I'm not sure. Well, okay, no, thanks. Let's do this. All right. The master plan document that is being presented here, and it's a collaborative process that has involved a number of government departments. About 9 departments have a role to play in the cannabis department. Hence, on the platform, we have people from various government departments that played that role. So the purpose of this presentation is to present an integrated government approach towards unlocking the economic potential of hemp and dagga, which are collectively known as cannabis. And also we're here to provide an update on the progress made in the development of this plan, and also give you a glimpse into the various cannabis value chains that we have worked on, and to present investment opportunities in the industry, because this has been a question that has been coming to say, where are the opportunities? Also to clarify the roles and responsibilities of all social partners, namely business, labor, communities, and government. In terms of the background, without taking much of your time, but this stems from a decision taken by Cabinet around July 2019 that South Africa needs a national strategy for commercialization and industrialization of cannabis in order to increase growth, create jobs, and for poverty alleviation. And our Minister Didiza, was appointed as the convener of the process. And we subsequently put together an interdepartmental committee to guide the development of this process. So the committee is made up of various government departments like health, justice, small business, science and innovation, trade, industry and competition, the presidency, SAPS, and we have also roped in a number of state-owned entities like SAPRA that report to health, Agricultural Research Council that reports to our department, the CSIR, and some universities. So the scope of the master plan include both hemp and dagga, even though sometimes people confuse the word cannabis to mean only dagga, but it is a scientific name that refers to both. So what we did when we did this work, we took up lessons that came from various other countries that have already gone this route of commercialization of cannabis. We looked at Canada, we looked at Uruguay, Spain, USA, China, Mexico, and others. And on the African continent, we also look at a number of countries. And then also of particular importance to note is that a neighboring country like Lesotho has also started issuing licenses for medical cannabis. But we know in South Africa, cannabis is not new. Communities have been planting and cultivating cannabis, that is dagga, for centuries. And this has in turn contributed to the improvement in livelihoods at household level. And also they've managed to put their kids through schools, managed to feed their families. And there was also some exports made, even though that was illegal. The rationale for doing this work on the master plan come from these three areas that I've reflected. Firstly, is we would like to diversify the economy and thereby increase economic growth, create jobs, and for poverty alleviation. We want to give the economy a new growth trajectory. That is what we wanted to do. In terms of the size, the industry is estimated to be worth around 28 billion rand, and it can create anything between 10,000 to 25,000 jobs across the value chain. And then in terms of the areas for commercialization, there are four broad areas that we are planning to commercialize cannabis on, namely medicine, industrial, food, and recreational. In terms of medicine, we're looking mostly at these two compounds, the CBD and the THC, which are said to be having properties that can heal a number of diseases like chronic pain, asthma, glaucoma, cancer, and others. And then there's also work that is being done through our colleagues at the Department of Science and Innovation to look at whether cannabis can heal the diseases that are created as a result of COVID-19 virus. And there's some interesting results that are coming through. And then the second area is industrial. Here you mostly use hemp. And then these, we use almost all parts of the plants, stalks, the seeds, and the leaves. Whereas with medicine, it's mostly the leaves, the flowers, and the flowers. And then in terms of industrial, the products that can be produced ranges from textiles, building material, cosmetics, etc. And then the next area is the food one. This is the fastest and largest growing sector that other countries indicated to say, if you can get this one right, then that will boost your economy massively, because food is consumed on a daily basis by almost everybody. in the country. So then with food, we use both the seed and the leaves, and products that comes out of here include hemp meal, baking products, sweets, gummies, energy drinks, etc., including animal feeds. Then the last area is recreational. Here, the active ingredients that is used here is THC, which is found in the leaves and the buds, as well as the flowers. And this is consumed mostly through smoking, and it's said to help in terms of relaxation, putting you in a good mood, increasing your creativity, and also for religious purposes. So the areas that what has been happening with medicine, here we have already started as a country through SAPRA, which has issued some licenses. And with industrial, with hemp, there is also work being done to move this one. And then on food, that is where there's still a lot of work to be done. Particularly, we want a lead department, because these responsibilities stretch around number of government departments. For example, the Department of Health has the Food and Cosmetics Act, Agriculture have a number of food-related legislation, and the Department of Trade and Industry has a role to play in terms of agro-processing. The recreational one, for now, this is an area where South Africa still needs to work because there are a number of issues that need to be addressed there. But it is the one that will come later after the others because of the complexities that we'll explain later. Then the challenges facing the cannabis sector, without taking much of your time, there are legislative restrictions. We know this has been a product that has been restricted for many, many years, and then there's no formal seed supply, high entry barriers, negative public perceptions, because people think when you say cannabis, you mean drug, and the lack of manufacturing capacity because it's been illegal. Then limited investment in research and technology development, because again, it has been a sector that has been operating underground, and there's a highly fragmented sector because because of being prohibited for many, many years. So there are challenges if you have to consult in the sector, because there are no established industry bodies like we have in other agricultural communities. And also there's a proliferation of illegal products. You might have seen some of these on our markets already. And then there's market challenges. We still need to develop these challenges. And the last one is the threat of takeover or dominance by big corporations and pharmacy groups, which with big money. Again, after we have cleared all the obstacles, then the big players might come in. And the current legal status, this is the part that you all know, that there are only two pieces of legislation that regulate cannabis in the country: is the Drugs and Drug Trafficking Act, that is administered by the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, and the Medicine and Related Substances Act, administered by the Department of Health. And the schedules for the Medicine Act have been amended to reschedule cannabis, which has helped a lot in moving us closer and closer towards commercialization. But the challenges still remain with the Drugs and Drug Trafficking Act. There's been a number of challenges there that you must all are aware of. A lot of litigation. The department has been taken to court many times. There even a number of judgments coming from the Constitutional Court. And then on the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, what we have done is we have amended the regulations of the Plant Improvement Act to provide for the regulation of hemp, because there's been this agreement in the Interdepartmental Committee on Cannabis that hemp will best be served when it is administered by the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. And we have done work on the plant breeders' rights to protect intellectual properties. But we all know that as a country, we need a new policy and a legislation to guide, to provide for commercialization of cannabis. This is a work that needs to be done. And the master plan is anchored on 9 pillars. namely effective regulatory system, sustainable seed supply, research and technology development, sustainable producer systems, market development, supply development, education and training, communication and awareness. Just briefly touch on those pillars. The pillar one, which is effective regulatory system, focus on developing a new regulatory framework for both hemp and dagga. This pillar is led by the Department of Health, supported by the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. The key interventions that colleagues must deal with that will be working on this pillar is to finalize the amendments to both the Drugs and Drug Trafficking Act to remove the remaining restrictions. The schedules have been identified and the colleagues have agreed on what needs to be done around those. The delay has been these constant litigation that the department has been facing, and then also to guide us in terms of developing a new policy to provide for a new regulatory framework and help us to develop a new legislation for commercialization of cannabis in South Africa. Pillar two is sustainable seed supply. This pillar focuses on the production, processing, and packaging of seed, and this will be led by my department, Department of Agriculture, Land Reform, and Rural Development, supported by the Department of Small Business Development. In terms of the work that needs to be done here, is issues around compulsory registration for all the companies involved in the cannabis value chains, certification schemes to ensure that we can preserve and ensure quality of the seed, and then again to provide for import and export control and variety control and listing and seed testing services. Pillar three is research and technology development. This pillar deals with research and development to support the cannabis industry. The pillar is led by the Department of Science and Innovation, supported by the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. Among other things, they will look into breeding, product development, technology adoption. Pillar four is producer support system. The pillar focuses on mobilization and supporting farmers to participate in the cannabis value chains. And this will also include what we call the current illegal dagga growers. We have been told by our principals that they need to be included into the value chains, and there are plans to do that. And the pillar is led by the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, supported by Small Business Development. Among other things, looking at technical support, financial support, zoning, because there's a feeling that maybe certain areas in each province need to be zoned as cannabis producing areas. Pillar four is market development. This pillar focuses on developing a new domestic and export market for cannabis in South Africa. The pillar is led by colleagues at the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, supported by Small Business Development. Among other things, they'll look at the domestic market, they'll look at the export market. They'll again look into incentive programs that can be used in this regard. Pillar six, supply development system. The pillar focus on supporting a wide range of suppliers to participate in the value chain for cannabis to ensure sustainable growth and development. And the indigenous dagga growers and sellers will also have to be catered for in this work. The Department of Small Business Development lead the pillar, supported by the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. Key intervention measures include development and implementation of special incubation programs and assisting in terms of offtake agreements and providing advisory services. Pillar seven, manufacturing and product development. The pillar focus on supporting the growth and development of the manufacturing sector for cannabis. As I've already indicated, as a country, we don't have this capacity currently. This needs to be developed, and the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, working together with the Department of Science and Innovation and the Department of Small Business, will guide us in that regard. They look, among other things, at infrastructure development and the incentive programs. Pillar 8 is education and training. The pillar focuses on providing a framework for education and training to support the cannabis industry. This will be led by the Department of Higher Education and Training with support coming from basic education, as well as the Department of Labor and Employment. Among other things, they look into implementing formal and informal training programs, integration of cannabis-related matters in the curricula of schools, colleges, and universities, and also support cannabis education and training programs through the appropriate sector education and training authorities, otherwise known as the CETAs. The last pillar is communication and awareness. This pillar has been created because cannabis has been shrouded in controversy for many years. There's been a lot of fake news about cannabis and untruths that are told regarding this particular commodity. The pillar is led by Government Communication Information System, GCIS, assisted by the Department of Communications, and the communication units in various sector departments that are participating in the Interdepartmental Committee on Cannabis. And among other things, they will look into development and implementation of information and awareness programs. Core messages will be around demystifying some of the negative perceptions about hemp, dagga, and their products. And secondly, to promote consumer education and awareness regarding the regulatory measures in order to promote compliance to government legislation and root out the wrongdoers. In the following slides, I just want to touch on the various cannabis value chains that have been worked on thus far. Firstly is the cannabis value chain, unlocking the value chain for hemp. And this value chain has four main areas. Phase 1 is production inputs, phase 2 is primary production, phase 3 is manufacturing product development, phase 4 is markets. And then in terms of what is there in this value chain, they are in the production inputs phase. There are opportunities for breeding companies, there are opportunities for seed companies, opportunities for nurseries, opportunities for chemical companies. And then in terms of primary production, there are opportunities for small growers, commercial growers, and contractors. And for manufacturing, there are opportunities in terms of cosmetics and body care, food and animal feeds, nutraceuticals, beverages, the textiles, building material, paper, and the industrial products. And in terms of the markets, there are opportunities in both the local and export market. In other words, when we were asked where are the investment opportunities, this is what we were pointing out to say, these are the things that can be invested in. And then the second one is the value chain for medical cannabis. As you know, it's mostly dagga, even though some medicine may come from hemp in the form of CBD, but here is mostly dagga. Here, it also have four phases: production inputs, primary production, manufacturing, markets, and then again, the opportunities almost the same, but big differences here in terms of manufacturing, where you have pharmaceuticals, cannabis oil, African medicines, food, the nutraceuticals, health-infused products like the energy drinks, the teas, cosmeceuticals, and the industrial products. Right, and then the next one is on recreational cannabis. This one has four phases, but the first two phases are allowed in terms of the current legislation, and the bill that's going to be discussed today is the one that has made this possible. There are four phases: production inputs, primary production, value addition, and market development. But for South Africa, there's only two that is allowed in terms of the current legislation.
Honorable members,
production inputs, there are
good morning.
Opportunities like with the others around breeding, seed companies, nurseries, chemical companies. And then with primary production,
recording in progress.
Only opportunities for small growers.
I've noticed that the majority of the members
2018 Constitutional Court judgment, we know, which made provision to say you can consume and plant cannabis in your own space. So no value addition is allowed. In other words, no manufacturing or processing is allowed. And then again, no marketing is allowed in terms of cannabis for recreational use. But the bill that you will be discussed today deals with that So, but once as a country, we come to a stage where we're ready to commercialize the whole value chain. This is how it looked like. And countries like Canada, countries like Uruguay, and certain states in the United States of America have already moved along this, and then we will be learning from them. But we were told to say this will be a big money spinner once it is formalized and allowed to operate along the whole value chain. And then on this slide, we have included this slide because we've been asked many times to say, what about the small growers? If they have to participate in growing both the hemp and the dagga or processing it, how will be, what model will accommodate them? Because we know the piece of land is smaller. And again, they are restricted in terms of financial resources and other challenges. So we've come with this model where we say, in a specific area, you take a group of farmers and then who agree to work together. And but each of them will operate on their own farm. And then what is done is government or state-owned entity or any donor can put up a central processing facility in that space where you will link it up with these farmers, and then government will provide seed and other production inputs to these farmers to assist them with primary production. And then government will then provide infrastructure and issue group permits for this facility. And then once the products come from the farmer, it get recorded, and we know who has supplied how many tons, because they will be paid according to what they have supplied, and then these then get passed on to the manufacturers of various products. This may be private sector that may invest here, and then from there it goes to the markets. And that is how we have conceptualized the model for inclusion of small growers as well as small manufacturers. Then on this page, Chairperson, we just want to indicate that there's been a lot of consultation done with regard to this master plan. After we have got endorsement from our EXCO and the Ministerial Advisory Committee, the IMC, we undertook the process of consultation. This happened during February up to May, where we consulted all provinces, and in each province we're looking, we talked to the Department of Agriculture, the Health Department, and Economic Development, and we have talked to the researchers. We have talked to COCTA and the National House of Traditional Leaders. We have talked to other departments that will be impacted on, like social development in terms of mental health issues, which came through many times when we were talking to stakeholders throughout the whole country. The major issues that came regarding this master plan, stakeholders indicated the following, that we need to address the licensing challenges because currently they say this is very expensive and again, cumbersome. And then we need to clarify the confusion regarding the hemp permits, then deal with the illegal products that are currently on our local markets, high entry barriers to say, for example, medical cannabis, very, very expensive, that you need around 24,000 to get a license. And for you to establish those facilities that colleagues at SAPRA want, you need anything between 10 to 30 million. So that is, not many people have access to such amount of money. And then again, we were told many times to how will the current dagga growers and the traders be accommodated. And then we recently in June, we presented this master plan to NEDLEC, wherein it was discussed by government, business, labor, and communities. And then there was a decision taken to say we need to engage in terms of the contents, some of the contents in this master plan. That is where we are currently. The number of meetings have been planned regarding the actual content of the master plan to ensure that it is we have buy-in from social partners and also it is in line with the aspirations of the country. And then the master plan make provision for oversight committees and to guide the implementation and monitoring. The topmost structure is the Executive Oversight Committee, which will be responsible for high-level leadership and coordination for the master plan implementation to ensure shared ownership and accountability, and as well as commitments from various social partners. This structure is made up of ministers of the line departments, farmer associations, manufacturers, retailers, labor, etc., at an executive level. And the second structure is the master plan task teams. These will be responsible for supporting the implementation of various pillars of the master plan. I've already indicated there are 9 pillars, and then there will be a task team for each of those pillars to dig deep into what needs to be done. I've already indicated what needs to be done in each of those pillars. So their task is to ensure that that work get done. And then we have a third structure, the provincial cannabis committees. This will be responsible for supporting the implementation of various pillars of the master plan in each province. And again, it will be made up of representatives from all social partners and other stakeholders. These will report to the Executive Oversight Committee, just like the master plan task teams. And then the last one is the Program Management Office. This will be responsible for providing secretarial support to the Executive Oversight Committee, as well as coordinate the work of the master plan task teams and the provincial committees. Right, the last slide, this is the last slide. On this one, Chairperson, would like to say the portfolio committee, the honorable members of the portfolio committee are hereby requested to discuss and make inputs into the national master plan, and also endorse and support the master plan as the appropriate framework for the establishment and development of the cannabis industry in South Africa. Thank you very much. And once again, thanks for your indulgence, and apologies if I have overgraced in terms of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramashala. You said there'll be somebody else to take us through your views on the bill.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. This is Julian Yafta. I work with Mr. Ramashala, so I will quickly, if Mr. Ramashala can just unshare, then I will share my presentation, and it will be briefer than Mr. Ramashala's presentation. But we are mindful that Mr. Ramashala had a lot to deal with and to cover in his presentation. Thank you, Chairperson. Yeah, it is in slide mode on my side. I trust that it is also in slide mode.
Mr. Chapter, before you proceed.
Yes, sir.
Were you not consulted as a department when the bill was being drafted by the department?
Yes.
Did the department not participate in that process?
We did participate. Initially, we did give inputs on the draft bill, Chair, but since then it's our understanding that there has been significant changes, but initially we did provide inputs.
So when the bill went through cabinet, during that whole process, you were part of that process? Is that correct? Mr. Jafta?
Look like the Dr. Yafta has muted himself. Julian, if you can unmute, please.
Sorry, Chair, I was struggling to unmute because I was on a different screen.
Yes,
yes.
I am asking that you participated until the bill was passed through cabinet or through cabinet committees. Is that not true?
Yes, Chair, and like I've indicated, we did provide inputs at that point, but our understanding of the request that came to the department was for us to give input on the bill in its current form, and this is what this presentation would now cover, Chair. But we will be guided by your in terms of if you want to take this presentation at this point.
Yeah, I do understand that there might have been challenges of communication between our secretariat and yourselves, because generally we don't encourage a situation where people participate in a process because a bill is a cabinet proposal to Parliament. It represents all members of cabinet. It's their proposal to Parliament. So if you participate, the matter is passed by cabinet, then you come and raise issues which you should have raised during that particular process. It becomes, because we should be focusing, for instance, what we really wanted is the presentation on the master plan and what you are doing in as far as the master plan is concerned. Not to convert this to a public hearing, because now this is going to be an opportunity afforded to the public to comment on the bill because they were never part of that particular process.
Chair, I fully understood, and that is a responsible approach as you've outlined. So I will unshare this, and then we can then take questions or comments on the presentation of the master plan. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chapter. Can I now note questions and comments from members based on the presentation on the master plan that we have received? I have Honorable Werner Hor, Honorable Nibot Drachen, Honorable Mola, Honorable Steve Swart, in Honorable Breitenbach, in that order.
And also, I can't see where I'm using another gadget that I don't know where to put my hand up. Can you note me?
Honorable Masako Chele, in that order. Honorable Hon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and good morning to everyone. Chair, my question relates to the very specific issue of consultation. And also mindful of some of the comments that has been made in the chat, whether the department could apprise us as to whether in any way or form, as part of the consultations in order to settle on this master plan, interaction did happen with those who are already in the business and has been for some years of growing, cultivating, selling, distributing cannabis products. So from the slide that dealt with the consultation process, I get the sense that it was very much a process internal, in the sense that it involved governmental role players. And I, on the one hand, want to say that one can understand that in the sense that, of course, up to very recently, the activities of those who ultimately cultivated, grew, and developed the industry was, of course, illegal. But that doesn't take away from the fact that it is, as I understand it, has been for many years a multi-million rand industry. So I understand that the difficult balancing act in developing a master plan, but then it is not as if we are going to establish something in the place of nothing. The master plan is aimed at regulating an already existing industry, and even though it was technically then outlawed and illegal, I struggle to understand how you can settle on a master plan without involving those specific stakeholders or role players. So if that specific method or approach, if I understand it correctly, could be explained, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Horn. Honorable Niveau Trafficking.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you to the department for the presentation. Good morning to everyone on the platform. I am not clear why the second presentation was not done. If we could just clarify that, please. And then secondly, I would like to put more emphasis on what the chairperson recently asked. The department kept saying that they were involved at the beginning when the bill was being drafted. But does that not mean that the department was not involved throughout the entire process until this current draft of the bill? And then if the department was not involved until this version of the bill, then why was that the case? Because the chairperson is correct to say the departments as the stakeholders should be involved until the end. So I just would like clarification on that, if the department was involved or not involved in the entire process, and then also why the presentation wasn't done. Then secondly, so our department will be focusing on the local growers, and the local growers should be benefiting from this legislation, because a lot of the time our local producers do not benefit. It's only the big multi-million corporations that will benefit. So I would like to find out, how will the department ensure that it's first our local growers and producers who benefit instead of the multi-million corporations? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ngola.
Thank you very much, Chair. One Chair, I think it is important for us to agree that this has been for quite some time an underground operation. So I'm happy with the presentation on licensing. I'm happy, Chair, because having cannabis as a key economic pillar, particularly in the time of reconstruction and recovery, but have no means to close the black market, would have actually defeated the purpose. So I'm happy that there is a system designed for licensing of the growers and the traders and all that. But what I want to check with regard to that, Chair, is what qualities are we looking for? Or rather, let me put it this way. What qualifies one to get the license? Has there been a guideline or a regulation that has been developed, whether by the interministerial committee, to actually determine that this is the kind of people that we are going to be issuing licenses to, so that they are able to legally and freely trade and grow cannabis in the country? It's true, Chair, again. I'm sure bunyanisile ngoba sithuma mchapha uzawuyazi kahle kuba kwela cala ngapha emampondweni. It's true, equally, Chair, that they have been able to feed their families, but because it was illegal, so we're finding a way of taking it to the front market. But I think, Chair, we must equally be wary of the big business abusing this system by going down there into those communities, taking over their fields or their farms where they grow cannabis and exploit them. Remember, now that it is becoming a key feature of our economic growth, big business is going to develop a vested interest. So I think maybe the department must equally find a way to ensure that at the end of the day, those who have been practicing, we do understand that they did that illegally prior it was legalized, are actually given necessary support to ensure that they are able to grow wherever they are wherever they are trading with this cannabis. Because if the department does not give them necessary support, the person who was presenting, Chair, made mention of financial resources. It was they don't only help on them being able to grow, it equally helps on the product they are able to produce. There's an issue, Chair, that they have listed some diseases that they are likely to be cured using this cannabis. They have listed a number of them, but on COVID-19, they have written COVID-19 with 3 question marks. I want to check what is the cause for that. Lastly, Chair, on the issue of the consultation, I'm not sure, Chair, if I saw the Rastafari community there on the consultation. Where I stand, Chair, I think if the Rastafari community has not been consulted, then the department must make a plan. We know the history of this cannabis and the Rastafari community. So it would be important if it was indeed not consulted, it would be important that it be consulted. But in a nutshell, the master plan seems to be great and seems to be able to coin some of the things in a proper way, in a properly coordinated, in a properly regulated manner. I think if just few things can be dealt with, then we can safely say we give support to the master plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Mola. Honorable Swart.
Thank you, Chair. I'm having some connection challenges, so I'm going to leave my camera off. And I just want to thank the department for the input. I also particularly like all the comments on the chat that also help guide our deliberations. We appreciate that we are, although we are under some pressure, that we as a committee are beginning this process. So I was quite interested in the comment as Honorable Ngola has mentioned about the usage of cannabis for possibly COVID-19. And I'm surprised that the Department of Health didn't allude to that yesterday. So that I would like us to look into further. It could be similarly with the ivermectin issue that they're not too keen to go down that route. But let's leave that as it is. I also wanted to ask the department about the issue of consultation with stakeholders, in particular, again, picking up from the chat room that it seems that there hasn't been sufficient consultation on the master plan. And again, one doesn't want a lot of further delays, but I'd like you to give us, from the department's perspective, the consultation that took place with the drawing up of this master plan. Now, clearly, the whole elephant in the room is that the bill before us does not deal with commercialization or any of the issues related in the master plan. The bill before us deals with the private usage of cannabis and touches on hemp and touches on some other issues, and that is why it is useful to hear the other departments. But Chair, I think I tend to also agree with the Honorable Nibadruchen that might be helpful to look. We don't have to go through the presentation, but the concerns that the department has raised on the specifics of the bill, given the broader commercial approach that the master plan does set out, and the fact that the bill before us is a very narrow approach dealing purely with the private usage and decriminalizing that aspect. Chair, I would also like to express, whilst I appreciate the need for regulations and licenses and permits, but one of the biggest concerns for us as Parliament has been the abuse and the corruption and fraud that takes place with the allocation of licenses. So this, and I'm not casting any aspersions on this particular department, but we do know of the one aspect of the department, and that is the land reform process, which has been highlighted in many hearings and in fact by the SIU, with corruption that takes place there. So I'd like to hear from the department how they are going to avoid any corruption taking place with the allocation of licenses, with the allocation of permits, whilst not detracting from the need for regulation, but it does open the door for politically connected people to obtain licenses, particularly where this is a new area, it's a whole new open area, and we need to be very aware of that. So I want to hear of the checks and balances that are in place to prevent those aspects. Chair, we also need to have a broad understanding of the different impacts, and whilst we as the department deal with the Drugs and Trafficking Act, we've got the Health Department that deals with the Medicines Control Act. We've seen setting out here the very positive elements when it comes to hemp, when it comes to industrial hemp, when it comes to medicines. I'm just concerned that the high levels and the high thresholds that are being created by other departments might inhibit the further access of cannabis for those aspects, such as commercialization of hemp, commercialization of medicine products. And we need to look into that from an oversight perspective as well, given the fact that we are now considering all other departments as well. So, Chair, I'll leave it at that for the time being. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Breitenbach.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I was covered by Honorable Horn. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Jailer.
Thank you, Chairperson. Most of the issues, Chairperson, has been covered, but I just want to also come in on the issue of consultation, Chairperson. Let me just thank the Deputy Minister and the team also for coming and making this presentation to us. Thank you very much. My question on the consultation, Chairperson, is that I've been hearing Mr. Ramashala emphasizing on the issue of consultation with these other countries, outside countries. Particularly, he was putting more emphasis on the countries overseas, those well-developed countries. I didn't hear him giving us maybe ideas as to the African countries that he has mentioned there, except talking about a little bit about Lesotho, but other African countries, how are they, what information that they have maybe for us from these other countries, African countries. And then my other question, Chairperson, is on the issue of, let me say before I go there, I'm also having a concern on the issues of the big businesses, Chairperson, because we grew up in our areas, in the township, some of our neighbors, our people in the rural areas, using this, using cannabis and in fact dacha in order to make lots of things in terms of also getting money, though it was illegal. Chairperson, on that one, I want also to emphasize and support Honorable Ngola that those people have to be considered when legislation is done. Those people, our people, must be considered. Because if we're going to have structures like Abo SAPRA, having to, I won't say, I don't want to put it and be quoted as having monopoly when it comes to the fees, high fees, and all those things in terms of when it comes to these issues. It makes one to be worried, Chairperson, that our people won't be affording affording and being afforded opportunity to improve their lives if we are going to leave them in that way. But lastly, Chairperson, on the issues of education and awareness, I think this area is also important, very important, Chairperson. I just want to find out if, as we are all aware that this matter, it lies in many government departments. These other departments that are coming here, yes, they are leading in this, but I want to find out about education and awareness, especially communication. Are they also working on this strategy in terms of communication so that this information reach our people in time, so that they also begin to prepare themselves on these issues, so that when the whole thing is legislated, they know exactly what to do and where to go and how would they get help in terms of making sure that they leverage on this opportunity that is coming. Thank you, Chair, for them.
Thank you very much. Over to you, DM, or to anyone you would delegate to respond to the questions asked and comments made.
If it's in order with the DM, myself and Mr. Ramashala can start. I don't know if the DM has a connection issue.
Yes, now you can proceed, Dr. Chapter.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the honorable members for the questions. It's much appreciated. I think it's important, honorable Chair and members, just firstly to appreciate where we are in terms of the master plan. The master plan has not yet been fully approved. We have had approvals to go out, and we have had approvals and endorsement to consult further on the master plan. Mr. Ramashala's slide on slide 23 that outlines the different categories of stakeholders consulted is an attempt to show you what we've done up to now. This is not the final point of consultation. If I have to, so there's a lot of government departments listed, and the intention was not just to limit the consultation to internal parties, but a lot of those government departments also forms part of the interdepartmental committee that has been working on the drafting of the master plan in current form. Particularly looking at the industry, we've had consultations with those who we knew about who are in the industry or involved in the industry. By no means did we consider those to be the full extent, because as indicated by Mr. Ramashala, this is not an industry like, if you take an analogy or an example, like the grain industry, where if you know you're speaking to the grain industry or you want to consult the industry, there's a specific body to consult. So those who we were aware of and whom we knew of, those have been consulted. And that was not the final point of consultation. So at this point where we are, and which is important, is that we have done the NEDLAC process, and under NEDLAC, we will have the joint consideration of the master plan by government, by the sector, and there will still be challenges in terms of who is defined in terms of the sector. And then the NEDLAC process also prescribes that we have to involve the community, and there is representation in that sense. But the point is that we are still continuing with consultation, and I'm hoping that we've seen some of the comments and some of the names in the chat. We hope that we can even involve some of the groupings that we've seen are indeed some that we've consulted initially, but there is an opportunity. This is not the final draft of the master plan. Then, Chair, so a lot of the questions around the licensing, ensuring inclusion, those are all the objectives of the master plan, and this is why we have those various pillars as well as different departments leading on those pillars, and particularly ensuring that we don't create a space where big companies come in and they dominate the cannabis sector. That is an important objective of this master plan. But a lot of the nitty-gritty or the action plan which needs to come from this master plan is going to address those matters, Chair. I will allow Mr. Ramashala to also come in and provide further responses, but I think it's very important that the members appreciate that this is not the we've come a long way in terms of drafting the master plan, but it is not yet the final version. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Yafta. And again, thanks, Chairperson, and also honorable members for the questions and comments. In terms of the questions asked, if I can just touch on some of them, because the others are related. Firstly, on the issue of consultation, who has been consulted? I've shown a slide where we indicated who have been consulted, but I must say we consulted both government departments. We have also consulted the growers. We have consulted the people that are said to be in the industry, because again, because this is a highly fragmented industry, we were just asking around and also inviting anyone. But I must say, when we had the session with industry stroke business stroke growers, that was the biggest. I mean, we have close to 400 people that participated in that session. And then, well, I must admit that it doesn't mean everybody, but we had a broad section of stakeholders, starting from people who are said to be growers, the people that are said to be selling, the people that are said to be importing and exporting. We also have Rastafarian communities in that session, and a whole range of others. And then further than that, there's been a number of webinars where we presented. And again, we touched a number of stakeholders in that. So the consultation, we have tried as much as we can, given the fragmented nature of the industry, but we really tried to stretch ourselves. And again, like Dr. Yafta indicated, we're still involved in the NEDLAC process. We will rely on social partners again to help us to have this message reaching even the growers right on the ground that may not necessarily have access to internet or have access to other means of participating in the session. But we have tried our best. And then just the other issues on how will the local growers be assisted? And we have indicated that there is a pillar on producer support, and that's the pillar that will deal with that particular aspect. But of particular importance, we are mindful of the fact that there's been a lot of communities, members, individuals who have been participating in this industry for many, many years. And it will be a disgrace if these people are now excluded from this industry now that it is going to be formalized. So our endeavor is to ensure that we ensure that everybody participate. There was a screen I've shown on how we're going to integrate growers into the value chain. And that is what our idea is, so that we can get these farmers to participate. And then we have had discussions with provinces, and they also have ideas on growers in each of the provinces can be incorporated into the value chain. So it is a matter that's going to need some form of work to be done, but we have the model, and then we have proposals on how these things can be done. But the people that will be in the task team for each of the pillars will help us to put this thing together. And then in terms of who will qualify for a license or a permit, what we want to say is that anyone in South Africa who meet the requirements in terms of the guidelines will get a license or a permit. So it will be on that basis that you need to have the means. You must meet the requirements. Firstly, if you're gonna be growing, it means you need to have access to land, whether you own it or you have leased it or you have borrowed it from somebody else. That doesn't matter, but you need to have access to land. And again, for medical cannabis, they will also want you to put up the structures, and then there are requirements to be met in that regard. And the same goes for hemp. But there are guidelines to guide people that want to participate in there. But as much as possible, we will assist the participants to participate in that space. Then there was an interesting question about why for COVID-19, we have put up question marks on it. The reason being that it is a matter that is still under research. Colleagues at the Department of Science and Innovation have indicated to us to say they are promising results of using COVID-19 to deal with some of the ailments that comes as a result of COVID-19. So it is ongoing work that is being done. The reason why we put question marks there is that because there's still a lot of questions that have been asked. Firstly, people said, will it only be cannabis, or will it be cannabis in combination with others, other plants or other compounds? Then we said, no, this is work that has been done, but we were told there are promising results in that. And then we are very excited about it. And then on the issue of abuse and corruption that might come into licensing or giving permits, and whether there are checks and balances, yes. I think this is a matter of great concern. We will be mindful of that no form of corruption should creep into the process of issuing licenses or permits. Anybody who qualifies needs to be given the chance to get a license or a permit. And then we will ensure that this matter doesn't get tainted by any form of corruption. And then there was a question on the lessons that we learned from other countries. We what we did was we had to say, we said to ourselves, let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's look at what other countries have done. And then we look into the type of challenges they went through, the successes they attained. And then we also said, we will look also on the African continent. So we have mentioned a number of countries in Africa, countries like Nigeria, Kenya, DRC, and others who have started moving towards commercialization of cannabis. But at this stage, their major focus is more on the recreational side of it. And Lesotho is the one that is on the medicinal side. But rest assured, we are looking at everybody. We will also be looking at the Asian countries as well and taking best practices all over the world. Because as part of the global community, we said, we will not reinvent the wheel, we will learn. We will not copy everything that they do. We learn and adjust to our own conditions on the ground, because we have our own challenges here. We have our own history with regard to cannabis. And then we also know how our people have been dealing with this particular plant for many years. So it will not be a copy and paste type of a thing. We learn the best practices and adjust them to South African conditions. And then on education and training, as well as awareness, we agree that is the reason why those pillars have to come in, because we really need our communities to be well educated, as well as be provided with the right information and not be subjected to fake news and all of these false allegations about the industry. So that's why on education and training, the Department of Higher Education and Training is leading that pillar. We have had a number of meetings with them. They understand where we're coming from. They've also brought in the Department of Basic Education. And then on the communication and awareness, GCIS is leading on that one. A communication plan has been developed. The type of messaging that need to be conveyed have been worked on by various departments. So we hope we are on the right track. It's a new industry. There will be a lot of lessons that we'll learn along the road. But what we have said is, as we go on, we will be correcting some of the shortcomings that we might identify. But this is the path that we said we will take going forward. Thank you very much. Let me stop here.
Chair, can I come in here at this time?
Yes, you can come in, Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much. I want to further endorse the fact that this is work in progress. And secondly, our appreciation as a department is when we are at this engagement and briefing stage, we are being cautioned of critical areas that we must not overlook. We accept that, and we want to assure the honorable members, Chair, that we will ensure that we take care of the concerns that have been raised and ensure that we go direct to those areas. Agreeing with a number of honorable members, including Honorable Nola, is the fact that government is coming at a later stage when this industry has been going on for many years. And therefore, there's a lot that the government has to learn from those who has been in this space. But also what has happened immediately after there was that judgment, which government responded to, that allowed people to use it. There was no particular regulation as to how part and how do people are being regulated in this one. Many people from outside South Africa came in and held quite a number of conferences, educating people and engaging them in conferences and establishing structures in our provinces. And the government was not in that space. So as we continue this master plan, we also have to undo some of the evils that have happened, including funding. If you go to the areas known for this cannabis, your Port St. John's, Lusikisiki, Mankaneni, where it was already under irrigation, despite that it was prohibited. In those particular areas, the consortium of organizations you find there that seek to say they are legitimate. So in our consultation process, as you say, and as the department states, that we have to unpack some of the matters that were established before we were in the space. And we actually agree fully that we are going to, or the department is in the process, particularly on the small business, trade and industry as well, because there has to be a way of organizing those communities that are not in any consortium, that are not in a fundable entity like your cooperative, so that when we discuss issues of license, we also consider that they be organized and not remain individuals and then vulnerable and unable to access what is available for other cooperatives. I'm saying when I stop at Share, we are really busy up and down in terms of getting to all the corners where these people were, because they're still not trusting some of them, that if they say, here I have been producing these tons, am I having an immunity that I'm not going to be arrested? So these operations come up so that we can engage thoroughly. When we have gone a particular mile, we must not come back and find that some were left because they remained not coming up. So I agree with all the areas that our honorable members have raised, and we will continue to gather from that particular experience and expertise and go back and apply, not forgetting the indigenous knowledge in this particular space. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. I see on the platform we also have Deputy Minister Skwacha. You are welcome, Deputy Minister. Do you want to say something?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I have just joined in from another meeting. I have listened to my colleague making very valid points, and I am really covered. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister Skwacha. I see there are two more hands on the platform. Honorable Jele, is that a new hand or an old hand?
Oh, my apology, Chair. Old hand.
Oh, no problem. Honorable Swart, is that a new hand or an old hand?
New hand, Chair.
Okay, you can proceed.
Chair, I thank the department for the explanation and the reference to Lesotho in particular when it comes to medicinal attributes that could fight COVID-19. There was a report yesterday, and so that is something I would like the department to let us know further information about. I would also like the department to give us an indication when the Chair, it's very important actually that you see, we're dealing with cultivation offences here, and the Department of Agriculture is actually best suited to advise us about sizes of plants, numbers of plants, as we consider that. I think it's very important that they are also involved in advising us on the regulation side of things when it comes to looking at that and the concerns that many people have expressed about the bill. In that regard, I would also like the department, as they are determining regulations concerning the commercialization of various items, and when one looks at the hemp side of things, I'd like the department to give us an indication of their scientific evidence where they have developed the regulation of hemp as an agricultural crop, where they refer to flowering heads that do not contain 0.2% THC, and what impact that will have when one develops the master plan with commercialization of various items, in this regard hemp, the agriculture, which is low THC, but what governed the 0.2%? I'd like international and local research on that. And what happens if you have a massive crop in South Africa and you happen to have 0.3% or 0.4%? Does that mean that whole crop must be destroyed? So to what degree, because we know that that is very low psychoactive, very low, but to what degree would there be some flexibility when it comes to commercialization that would prevent the destruction of the crops where it might be slightly more than 0.2%? And I see on the chat show someone says that it is unsustainable. I'm not an expert on this area, but it just seems to me, because it indicates that that regulation, when the regulations are developed for the bill, the THC content must agree with what is provided for in the department's regulation, as well as the Medicines and Related Substances Act. And I think we need to look at, and this is an issue that I raised when we first got the briefing on the 0.2%. I think, Chair, we would need to engage with this further. And I'd like the department maybe to present, they don't have to answer us now, but to present us some research on that area, because when it comes to the definitions as well as the cultivation offences that we are considering in the bill, we would like, I would like through you, Chair, to ask for science-based evidence for that which we are proposing in the bill. And I'm sure the department would be very helpful in this regard, given that they are the main department with the different Plant Breeders Act and other acts that we refer to advise us more in this regard. So I think we need to really embrace the department and the science councils and consult them on the regulations regarding immature cannabis plants and various other aspects that are referred to in the bill. I yesterday indicated my concerns about from the health department, the adolescent issues that we can deal separately, but I'm looking particularly at the hemp issues now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Swart. Sis Mimi, are you from the department? Sis Mimi, are you from the department?
I think it's a member of the public, Chair.
Okay. Members of the public, please note that this is still a matter between the department and the members of parliament. From the 31st, that is Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we will be doing public hearings where you will be given an opportunity to express yourself. So far, we have 27 organizations that have applied to be part of those public hearings, to make presentations. So from Tuesday, we'll be listening to you with your presentations. We have reserved 3 days to engage members of the public, because public hearings are an important part of rule or legislative making in our country. It's constitutionally protected. So prepare yourselves for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for the public hearings, where you will raise everything that you want to raise concerning this bill. But for now, we are still consulting with the departments that involved in the development of the master plan so that we can get a broader understanding of the industry as a whole before we focus on the narrow issue that is before us, that is cannabis for private use. There is a request, Deputy Minister, which I think I'll be speaking on behalf of all committee members, that the officials from the Department of Rural Development, and I think we will make the same to the Department of Health, be part of us when we start from Tuesday when we deal with the public hearings, and until we go through clause by clause, because there are technical information and guidance that we will continuously seek from them, especially from your department and the Department of Health. That is the request we are making to Deputy Minister Tapa and Deputy Minister Squatter, and we will be doing the same with the Department of Health, because there are technical experts on this bill, from the scientific part to other technical legal issues that we would want further guidance on. Is that agreeable, Deputy Minister? Deputy Ministers? You have muted yourself.
Is the DM speaking?
You can speak, my colleague.
Oh, okay. No, Chair, I think it's a fair request. It's something that has to be considered because it will enhance the kind of work that we are busy with. We will have to take that matter and indicate likewise, and our officials are present here. I think there would be no reason to object to the request, really.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Deputy Minister, Deputy Ministers. I think we are also speaking on behalf of Deputy Minister Tapa. She has connection problems. But what we can ask from everybody who is involved in this process is that time wait for nobody. Let's not repeat the mistakes we did with the gold and platinum scenarios, where your big multinational will come in and take everything, and by the time we wake up, we have nothing. So it's important that we consult, we do everything, but we must bear in mind that time wait for nobody. An industry that can employ between 10,000 and 25,000 people can't be taken casually, especially when we are facing so many socio-economic issues in our country. This is a golden opportunity that we must grab and ensure that we move with speed to ensure that we revive our economy. We deal with health issues using what God has given us. So we will also be, after we are done with the process, because we don't want to usurp oversight roles of other portfolio committees, we will be making a proposal to the House Chair that from time to time, you appear before a multi-party committee that would include trade and industries, agriculture, health, justice, police, health, so that we are continuously abreast as to what are the developments. And I think by the time you come back, we would be interested in saying this is the plan, but these are the detailed programs that are in place, so that we can be able to tap into this resource that is at the disposal of our people. So we will be making that request to have a tighter monitoring of the progress we are making as a country, and that Parliament must have sight of it that we get continuous briefings as to how far you are progressing. Thank you very much. Let's have the Department of Trade and Industries and Competition. Deputy Ministers, if you have somewhere to go, you are free to leave. But if you want to listen to to the Department of Trade and Industry, which is the last presenter, you are also free to stay. So we won't detain you unduly. We know that you've got other tasks that we need to perform. But if you feel that you need to listen to the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, you are also free to stay.
Chair, sorry, Steve Swart, yeah?
Honorable Swart.
Just before the department leaves, it might be good through you, Chair, to ask that they don't need large teams to sit in, maybe just 1 or 2 officials when we are deliberating, because this is a specific presentation. And when we requested the DMs to send officials, I think maybe off platform, you can discuss that, Chair, with what we would need. It would purely be because I see there are very large teams from the departments, and I'm sure they can't afford those teams to sit in on our deliberations, but 1 or 2 officials might be sufficient should the committee agree to that, Chair. Thank you.
I think it's fair. It's very fair. It's very fair, Honorable Swart, because one of the biggest problems is that we must sweat our assets in a very strategic way. So if we have 100 people who are sitting here and who should be doing other things, then we will not be strategic in how we use our resources. So your suggestion, I think, is well in order. Thank you. Department of Trade, Industry and Competition.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to all the honorable members, as well as to you, Chair, and my colleagues from DELRAT, DTIC, and also to our stakeholders. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Chairperson. I just wanted first to indicate that we've got 2 presentations. There's a presentation that is supposed to be made by our CCRD, which is mainly looking at the inputs in terms of the bill. I'm not sure whether Dr. Mukabane, are you ready from your side? And then we'll also, because of the fact that already Dr. Ramashala has covered a lot of issues in terms of the cannabis master plan. So it will be a matter of, put emphasis in terms of the role of the TIC in terms of, opportunities in the cannabis industry. So I'm not sure whether, Dr. Mukabane, are you ready from your side so that we can start first with the inputs in terms of the bill? Chair, I'm not sure whether is it fine in that order.
Ms. Mchauli, before you proceed, I think it's the same question that we asked the Department of Rural Development. Whether were you not part of the team that was dealing with the drafting of the bill? Yeah, your department, because if the bill has passed through all the stages in the executive, including DG's cluster, subcommittee level, cabinet, cabinet, and then it comes here. So were you not consulted during all that period?
Thank you, Chair, for that question. We were consulted and we've made our inputs, Chair.
Yes, so the bill is a collective inputs from all of you in the executive. That is what the minister is proposing on behalf of the executive, which is cabinet, to parliament. But we will, as Honorable Swart has proposed, when we are dealing with clause by clause, you will be invited to be part of, so that you can be able to make those inputs. But we are avoiding a situation where departments are part of processes, and then when it comes to parliament, then they come with their own individual inputs again. It just defeats the whole process.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
It will be important if you focus on the master plan and what is your contribution and what you are doing to implement the master plan.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, for that clarity. Then let me just quickly go straight to the presentation. Can I get the sharing rights?
I think I'll be speaking on behalf of Honorable Breitenbach. She would want a comfort break for 2 minutes. Can we?
Yes, please, Chair.
Can we start at 15:15?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Ms. Mhlawuli, you can proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'm hoping that my presentation is visible, Chair, from your side.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you so much, Chair and members. Chair, I don't want to be sounding like a scratch kind of record, but my emphasis will be around, I think, the master plan, the role of the TIC in terms of, you know, the cannabis master plan. Just move to the next slide. I will skip the list of delegates, Chair, but just to mention that all the sectors that are contributing to the development of the master plan, they are part of this meeting, Chair, including the director, Tembelihle Ndukwane. She's responsible for agro-processing. Sina, she's also here, who's from the cosmetic sector desk of the TIC. Gillian from the pharmaceuticals. We also have Ms. Moji from the clothing and textile. Those are the major sectors that are contributing to the cannabis industry. Just as a way of outline or overview, I'll look at the introduction and background, which I think Tate Ramashala has covered, and then I'll also look at the issue that we discussed earlier on, which has already been presented around the licensing and permits for cannabis medicinal use, as well as the touch on the cannabis master plan, especially the interventions there. And then thereafter, I'll give a way forward. My presentation is going to be very short, Chair. I know Tate Ramashala, he was on the overgrazing side. I'll try to be on the undergrazing side of the presentation, especially in terms of time, Chair. Just to indicate that already the work has started as actually, I think, instructed by the Parliament in terms of the cabinet decision that took in 2019, that we need to look at some of, priority sectors that are going to help us as a country to increase economic growth, create jobs, as well as poverty alleviation. So the cannabis industry is one of the industries that has been prioritized. Hence, I think now we've started the process for the development of the cannabis master plan. And I must indicate that some of the issues that I think were raised by the members, Chair, I think they are very, very valid. And some of those is mainly around the consultation that we are undertaking, especially in terms of, a social compact. And I must indicate this is a very fragmented industry at this point in time. And it's going to be very difficult. And some of, operations, they are still operating, in a sort of a illegal manner. And, but we are going to try to make sure that we sort of reach as much as possible in terms of the stakeholders, Chair. Plus, I think in terms of our role as DTIC around the development of this master plan, which Thabo has alluded to, is to look at the commercialization policy and to look at the opportunities arising from the industrialization of cannabis as well as hemp in the areas of clothing and textile, opportunities in terms of the agro-processing, especially when you look at the food and beverages, opportunities in the pharmaceutical as well as cosmetic, especially in the areas of medicinal use of this crop. And also our role is to develop enabling policy, legal, as well as regulatory framework for the inclusive participation of the PDIs. As I think Deputy Minister Chapa has indicated, this industry has been in existence a long time ago, especially if you look at the areas around KZN, areas around KwaZulu-Natal, areas around KZN, and the areas around Eastern Cape as well as Western Cape and Mpumalanga. So this industry has been in existence. So we need to make sure that our indigenous people, they are part of this, sort of opportunities that I'm going to talk about, Chair. And also to develop market and incentives to assist companies to industrialize and commercialize products from the cannabis and hemp. That is very important, Chair, because this industry, if from in terms of the registration alone, in terms of getting the permit, getting the license, we are talking about plus 10 million rands that is required for our entrepreneurs to participate in this industry. Just the application form, when you submitted SAPRA, we are looking at almost 24,000. So those are the areas that we want to focus on to make sure that, from incentive point of view, from supporting those, small players as well as the companies, we are there as the Department of Trade and Industry. Let me just move to the next one. I think the introduction, I want to jump it, Chair, because I think Thabo has gone, in sort of a greater length in terms of the fact that the cannabis is still prohibited drug in terms of the tax act, and now we're talking about mainly, those that are in possession or use of it, which is mainly the part that has been decriminalized at this point in time. But the commercialization part of the value chain, I must indicate that it's not covered in the bill, Chair. Those are some of the concerns I've heard also from the members that we need to focus on as we move along in terms of the amendments of the bill. And also, I think to expedite the removal of low THC, which is now hemp, in terms of the Drugs Act, I think that is the role that I think DELRAT has started in terms of, working with the Department of Justice and Correctional Service, but more importantly, to make sure that our people are able to access those permits and licenses, especially for the hemp, working with DELRAT. In terms of licensing and permits, Chair, we have two major regulators at this point in time, which is mainly the Department of Health as well as the Department of Agriculture. Department of Health normally deals with high THC as well. And then when you look at the Department of Agriculture, they look at the low THC, which is mainly your hemp. And then the cultivation, manufacture, distribution, and import, and as well as export of THC containing medicine or CBD containing product would require a license issued by SAPRA. And then in addition to a license or manufacture or import and export of THC containing product for medicinal use, you also need a permit which is issued by the DG of the Department of Health in terms of Section 22 of the Medicinal Act. So that is basically the process at this point in time. But I must indicate that, Chair, I think the issue which has been raised by members in terms of the, the accessibility and also making sure that they are affordable, I think that is the issue that we are currently discussing now with the Department of Health, because we see it really as a kind of a barrier to entry in terms of this industry, especially for the small growers, because you're looking at almost 900 small growers that are involved in this industry, including those that are involved in the manufacturing space. So that issue is being discussed with SAPRA as well as the Department of Health. I've talked about the role of health as well as the role of Department of Agriculture and Land Reform, but I think in terms of the master plan priorities, especially for the cannabis commercialization, we are looking at almost 4 major sectors at this point in time. Medicinal, for example, is a major, sector that we need to, and it's a very lucrative sector or industry at this point in time. We're also looking at cosmetics. We're also looking at food and beverages. If you look at only food and beverages, Chair, you've seen the poison beer, which was, put up in the market, which is around, Durban. We've seen quite a number of companies infusing, the CBD oil into, some of their liquor, products. So it's quite a big, and also, some of the food stuff you're talking about, your candies, you're talking about your mushrooms and so on and so forth. So it's quite a big industry at this point in time. So we're looking at all those opportunities. So there is already an intergovernmental task team that is looking at the master plan, as Thabo has indicated earlier on, and as DTIC, we are leading the manufacturing pillar of cannabis master plan. I think this slide you have seen, but what I'm going to do is to put emphasis in terms of the role of the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition in all the sort of the interventions, that is intervention 1 up until intervention 9. These are the opportunities or that the focus or in terms of the manufacturing support that we will be looking at in the short to medium term. That, for example, as I've indicated earlier on, we'll be looking at some of the products that will be using the cannabis-based products, which is food and beverages. We'll be looking at also the opportunities in the pharmaceutical space, which we've seen is quite huge opportunities there. One of the members has talked about, for example, the issue around the THC levels, where we're looking at almost 0.1, 0.2%, the science behind it. I fully agree with the member that we need to put a lot of science, because the major part of this crop is mainly around the THC, where we know that it has got, huge healing components. The higher the THC, the more it has got beneficial elements in terms of, also issues around clothing and textile. For example, now we see a lot of,
Tolly, can you mute yourself? Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for let me proceed, Chair. And then also, Chair, just to indicate that we've seen also now some of the countries are talking about 100%, kind of, garments which are made out of hemp. So that should be our focus as the country. And also, the cannabis being used also in the construction as well as equipment and manufacturing space. So we need to zoom into those opportunities through our R&D and working more importantly with the industry, the sort of the work that is being done by the industry. So it's important that when we do the consultation, Chair, industry has to sort of involved in all our discussion. But as I've indicated earlier on, we're talking about a very fragmented industry at this point in time. I think Thabo has talked about sort of the uses of hemp, Chair. I don't want to sort of repeat this one, but I think I want to indicate that if you look at, for example, the three sort of parts or elements in the plant itself, we are looking at the stalk, we are looking at the leaves, you are looking at the seeds. The full plant is beneficial for a number of purposes at this point in time. So that's why we need to sort of make sure that we maximize on the value of this product in terms of making sure that we look at the opportunities that can be sort of tapped into by the different entrepreneurs, by the growers, and so on and so forth, so that we are not only looking at the upstream side of the value chain, we're looking at the whole downstream side of the value chain, including, for example, for things like in terms of the when you're looking at, pressing the seed, you're looking at omega, see all your chemicals that comes out of, the seed that you press, and also from the animal feed point of view, for example, we are looking at, for example, the feed for pets and so on and so forth, especially if you look at, for example, on your parts that are related, for example, to your seeds, as well as the stock, for example, where you are looking at your mulch and your fertilizers, so you can use that for those kind of activities in terms of your agricultural productivity or agricultural production. Just to come to the issues around the sort of the strategic intervention and measures, in terms of the role of the Department of Trade Industry and Competition around the cannabis industry. The first one is effective regulation system. We have proposed quite a number of interventions there or actions that we need to undertake in terms of the cannabis master plan. The first one is the development of a new policy and legislation for commercialization of cannabis, that we need to look at the policy that will look at that, creation of enabling policy as well as regulatory environment for inclusive participation of the PTIs and as well as community enterprises. So we've put ourselves a time frame of up to 2021 in terms of that sort of regulation or policies to commercialize the industry. That work has already started working with the Department of Small Business Development as well as BELRA. In terms of market development, this is a very important element, which is looking at mainly the offtake agreement in terms of the product itself, that we want to facilitate the development of domestic market for the cannabis product, where we are looking at the domestic market. The size of this industry, we are looking at almost 28 billion rands industry. And when you look at, let's say, 3-4 years time, the industry, we might be looking at even 30 billion rands in terms of the size of this industry. So we need to make sure from a demand point of view, from a domestic point of view, there is a demand for the cannabis products. And more importantly, Chair, also the issue around the, I would say some kind of illicit goods that are coming through. We need to make sure that we regulate that space from a trade point of view, deploy our trade sort of measures as much as we can to protect the industry from dumping, as well as from all these, illicit goods, as well as to facilitate and coordinate the opening of export markets. I think the members have talked about looking at Africa. For example, if you look at Africa, Nigeria comes tops in terms of, the cannabis industry, and then it's followed by countries like Kenya, and it's followed by Lesotho, and so on and so forth. So there you are talking about, your GMP, which is your good manufacturing practices, so which looks at the standards, which look at the number of issues in terms of this industry. So we need to look at the standards. There's some of the, I think, stories that I've seen recently was around the EU GMP, which was, the first country was mainly, I think, some of the companies in Lesotho have managed to sort of look at that accreditation check. Because if you get the EU GMP, that is the high standard in terms of this industry. Those are some of the issues, Chair, that we want to focus on. And then facilitate public and private sector procurement of cannabis from resource poor farmers and manufacturer. Investment is very important, Chair, especially if you're looking at, to make sure that, the investors, they come on board. We are not looking at few monopolies who have got, especially the big corporates who have money, but to make sure that there's a public-private partnership. That is what the master plan is all about, to make sure that there's a social compact between labor, between the private sector, between the small growers, and so on and so forth. So that should be part of the master plan as we move along in terms of the commitments to say, what are the big corporates that are going to bring on the table? What are the small players going to bring on the table? And more importantly, Chair, what exactly are the off-takers going to bring on the table in terms of this industry? Off-takers, I'm talking about the big companies that are going to be involved in the supply development processes. So as we move along, we are going to go into such space, including some of the government departments in terms of their commitments. Facilitate the development of appropriate market support, development and implementation of user-friendly marketing information system for cannabis products, provision of marketing information to farmers. We've talked about education, which is very important to make sure that there's information in terms of the demand, in terms of the market from a domestic point of view, in terms of the export market, which is not only in the African continent, also abroad, which is looking at Canada, looking at Uruguay, looking at Spain, and so on and so forth, looking at Italy. And then we are also going to focus on development and implementation of incentive programs to support the participation of resource-poor suppliers in the local and export markets for cannabis products. That is also as part of our incentive program. We want to also focus on this, look at specific incentive that is looking at, supporting the manufacturers, supporting mainly, I would say, the growers, although Delrad will take a lead in that regard, but as DTI, the manufacturers who are involved in that space. Because at this point in time, Chair, I've seen that, when you look at the equipment for processing, the cannabis, we don't have that kind of equipment in the country. Most of it is being imported. So we need to look at the infrastructure part of it, the equipment, to make sure that it is available in the country. Some of the manufacturers are importing it from Uruguay, from US, from Canada. So we need to make sure that we provide that kind of support to increase our local capability or manufacturing capability, Chair, as we move along. Then let me just move to the next one, Enterprise and Supply Development Program. Chair, this is where I think the role of, I would say DTIC comes in very handy at this point in time, where you're trying to look at proper supply development program between the growers, the processors, as well as the off-takers. So that is our role as DTIC, to make sure that supply development program is in place. Because the fact that many of them, Chair and members, they are still operating under, it's because some of them, they are talking about the issues of regulations, but some of them, they are also saying to us, if you can provide an off-take agreement, if you can provide somebody who can train me in terms of the manufacturing of the plant itself, come up with the different types of CBD oil, to come up with the different types of textile equipment, we are willing to sort of come out. So those are some of the, I think, communication kind of processes that we want to undertake from a supply development point of view, especially when you talk about the pharmaceutical companies, when you talk about the textile companies and so on and so forth, to bring the parties together, which is the manufacturers as well as the growers and the producers, which I've talked about earlier on, Chair. The next one, in terms of the master plan, the role of DTIC's manufacturing and product development. Chair, this one is also very important because when you look at the manufacturing component of this, it's still sitting with few big corporates at this point in time. So we want to make sure that, those skills to manufacture and make sure that we've got good quality products that are going to be used for medicinal purposes. We are sort of involved in that, including facilitation and coordination of investment in establishment of the manufacturing plants that will be used for producing things like your food, your medicine, your beverages, the whole value-added products that will come out of the raw material, come out of the raw material that is from both hemp as well as DACH, as well as the development and implementation of incentive programs for the development of new products from DACH and hemp. So that is our role, Chair, and we've seen there are timeframes that we have indicated. We're looking at up to 2023 to provide that kind of support. Chair, this is my last slide. Let me close by saying, Chair, that we want to sort of make sure that from a regulation point of view, especially for the commercialization part of the industry and the opportunities that are there, as we have indicated, Chair, earlier on, that we need to make sure that time can wait for no man. I fully agree with you, Chair, that we need to make sure that we get our ducks in a row in terms of, the licenses and permits as well as the regulation. That is what this slide is all about. But more importantly, to continue with our work in terms of ongoing research and development, including the standards. Because if you want to export now, Chair, just to give an example, you will see that in terms of some of the tariff lines, most of the, cannabis products, they are sitting in sort of the so-called other. So we've started the work with SARS to make sure that they unpack, some of the tariff lines so that we are more specific in terms of the type of cannabis products that can be exported and as well as imported, including the standards. There I'm talking about the voluntary standard as well as the compulsory standard for all the different types of cannabis products. Chair, can I leave it there for now? Because I know I can talk up until the cows come home, but I must say that thank you so much to our colleagues from Delrat to sort of be a captain of this exercise. Is quite a very difficult exercise because we are talking about an industry that is still in an infant stage from a manufacturing point of view, but from the growers' point of view, it's an industry that has been there in existence for decades, by the way. So we need to make sure that we've got the proper regulation, and the bill, I see it, Chair, that it's the right, we are in the right direction at this point in time to make sure that we are able to sort of mainstream all our players in the industry, especially the previously disadvantaged individuals. Let me leave it there for now. Thank you so much to you, Chair, and the members for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mhlauli, and to your team. Members, are there any questions or comments? Can you remove the slide?
Okay, Chair, I will do that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair.
Is any questions or comments? Honorable Newbold Jochens.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation from DTIC. Just one question: has the cost for licenses already been decided for licensing? Because it can't be the same costs for small farmers and big companies, obviously. So the costing for licensing here, has that already been determined, or is it still going to be decided? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Jala.
Thank you, Chairperson. No, mine is just a comment, Chairperson. I just wanted to make the department about the comment that you've made, that things should be done with speed. We are now at a point where our economy really needs this. I think the department is aware. Nothing more that we can say. We need speed in everything that they do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Jala. Any responses to the comments made by members? Ms. Mhlauli.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, members, for, I think, the comments and questions, Chair. The issue around the cost on licenses as well as permits, Chair, it's still under discussion at this point in time. It was tabled at the Interministerial Committee that we should go back together with SAPRA and as well as the Department of Health to look at, the costs involved in terms of the licenses as well as permits. As I've indicated earlier on, for the small growers, it's really unaffordable at this point in time. We see it as a barrier of entry. So we will continue to engage SAPRA. The last time I checked, Chair, they were going to present to their boards, SAPRA. I'm not sure of the update to date, Chair. So maybe it's some of the issues that maybe we will have to follow up just to look at, some of, the work that we have been requested to do by the Interministerial Committee. The issue of speed, Chair, I must indicate, maybe it's because of the fact that this industry, it's mainly, I've indicated, we have 900,000 small-scale farmers. So the agency around the regulations, for me, I think it's very, very important. I think that's why we are all here, to make sure that at the end of the day, we don't see big corporates or companies, being monopolist or oligopolist in the industry. We want to make sure that our Black players, they're involved in this industry. So the sooner we sort out the regulations and the cost of permits and what have you, I think that will help us to move with speed in terms of the manufacturing, because we know for a fact that manufacturers are waiting in terms of supporting this, but more important, the investors, when you talk about the foreign direct investors, to make sure that we support this industry. So, Chair, I fully agree with Honorable sorry if I've pronounced that incorrectly, that we need to look at that. I will be pushing also my team from GTIC as well as SAPRA, and more important, Department of Health, that we try to look at some of the hindrances or the sort of the barriers to entry. Thanks, Chair. I'm not sure whether my colleagues, I don't want to sort of, Chair, look like I'm the only one on this. If there's anyone from DTIC who wants to make inputs or response, Chair, I think we can allow you with your permission, Chair.
Thank you very much. Anyone who wants to speak from DTIC? Ms. Mhlawuli, have you considered any special incentives, especially for this industry, since it's an infant industry that has got a lot of potential?
Chair, I wouldn't want to have a direct response on that, but just to indicate, in terms of our agro-processing support scheme, we cover quite a lot of value chains that are in the agro space. So obviously, if in the cannabis industry, if we get any application which meets all our requirements, we will be able to support it, Chair. But there is no special incentive that is looking at this industry at this point in time, Chair. That is what is happening currently. But I think as we move along in terms of the development of the industry, looking at the size of the industry, looking at the infrastructure that is required, I think, Chair, we should start engagements with the National Treasury as well as the incentive unit of IC. Thanks.
Okay. No, thank you very much for the presentation from Ms. Mhlawuli and her team. Thank you very much. I think you are as passionate as I know you. I've worked with you. You have been very passionate, and I think you will show that passion even with this program. It's a very big program. It only needs passionate people for it to take off the ground. Members, I think we thought that it would be important that we get a strategic view of how the industry is, so that by the time we start with the clause by clause or even with the public hearings, at least we do have an understanding of what are the issues in as far as the industry as a whole are concerned, and we understand the industry much more better, so that we can legislate on the basis of what we know and not on the basis of what we do not know. I think all the departments have given us quite a good amount of information for us to be in a position to proceed with the bill. Some have been asked for further information. I think the Department of Rural Development was asked to further provide some scientific information on other issues, and even the Department of Health. And we will be closely monitoring as Parliament this process, because we don't want to have a process that has endeavors and plans. We want from now to see real projects starting from the ground, owned by South Africans, and in some cases where we would need to partner with multinationals, but it should be in such a way that it is beneficial to our country. We don't want to have a repeat where 100 years from now you see big holes where there were mines and no development around those communities. those lessons should never be repeated. We are taking this step to ensure that we are going to grow this industry with the people of South Africa, for the people of South Africa, and the surrounding countries. I mean, we will collaborate and share experiences with Lesotho, Zimbabwe, and others, and other countries, because it is not only about South Africa's revival, but it is also about SADC and the African, the revival of the African economy. So we are impressed about the passion that the department that has appeared before us are showing to want to make this to be a game changer. Because our economy is very depressed, the mood is very depressed. We need projects like this to uplift the mood and to turn around the economy. This is one of the biggest projects that we should be directing our resources and energies towards. Thank you very much, members. Thank you very much to all the officials who have made presentations, and to everybody who has been watching these briefings. And thank you to the deputy ministers that came before us in advance. In fact, in their absentia, I think they've already left. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Besafuna more, Chair Mustan.
Siyaqhubeka kusasa. Siyaqhubeka next week.
Okay, no, ayisabonga i-break kancane.
Sure.
Sharp.
Sure.
Record.